Hashem li lo yira me'yasa li adam. I did not fear anyone when God was with me. What can any person really do to me when I have God's help? Verse number 7, Hashem li ba'ozrai v'ani ere b'sanai. I knew I would see the downfall of my enemies when God was with me amongst my helpers. David HaMelech had many enemies. David HaMelech, King David, really suffered a lot. And what did he say? I knew that at the end my enemies would fall. Why? Because Hashem was with me. Look at history, look at life, look at reality. Things could be really, really rough, and life could be really, really bad for some people. And yet, things can turn around like that. Why? Because Hashem is with me, even though we don't see Hashem's hand. Sometimes Hashem seems so hidden from us. It's unbelievable. But we have to remember something, and I say this all the time. All we see is what's in front of our nose. God looks down and he sees the entire puzzle, bird's eye view. He sees the whole puzzle. He sees his whole plan working out. So that's where emunah and bitachon, faith, belief, faith, and trust in God plays a role. We see, where did this play a role? A lot during times of Stalin, during times of Hitler. We see how the greatest people had the greatest emunah and bitachon in the worst of times, and I'm embarrassed to say many of them had greater belief and bitachon, trust in God, more than we do. I'm talking about Jews already who went into the camps and Jews who lived in the ghettos. Think about it. Their main thoughts, many of them were, wait a minute, we're still in the concentration camps, but in 3 days is Pesach. Where can we get a little dough, flour, and water and make at least one matzah? Right? You have many stories like that. 2 days is Hanukkah. Let's get a little butter, melt it, make the oil, take a thread out of the clothing with a button holder, right? Put the oil in there, light at least one candle for Hanukkah. That was on their mind. That was their emunah and bitachon in God. That no matter what, God is still with them, even in the concentration camps. It's unbelievable. Emunah and bitachon, belief and trust in God, faith, what is? That is it. That is what life is all about. Making God, and this is what I say all the time, emunah Hashem, belief in God, is not believing in something that's far off, and because we can't feel or see, boom, we believe. No. Belief in God is making God relevant to our lives, no matter what the situation is. Whether it be a Holocaust, God forbid, whether it be a Russian gulag, whether it's someone's in the hospital, whether it's a COVID virus, no matter what. We can't forget one thing. God is part of our lives, no matter what the situation is. You have my word. Back in Europe, people lived in a lot harder situation in the concentration camps, more danger, more sickness, more than the COVID virus. And yet God was part of them. Loi ira. Hashem li bi'ozai. Hashem, no matter what they believed, is with me. They didn't say, the heck with God. You had people who said that. But you also had a lot of people who their faith in God, no matter how bad their situations were, became a lot stronger after the war. It was unbelievable. So that's what David HaMelech is telling us in that. The next verse, number 8, is as follows. 8 and 9. Such powerful words in Hallel, in Tehillim. Powerful. Amazing words. Toiv lachasais b'Hashem. It is better to believe in the shelter of God mibtoyach ba'adam than believing in man. Toiv lachasais b'Hashem. It is better to believe in the shelter of Hashem mibtoyach ben divim than trusting, putting all your trust in powerful people and leaders. And I want to repeat this, it's so important. Toiv lachasais b'Hashem, it's better to trust in Hashem's shelter mibtoyach b'adam than believe in man. How many times do we know? I know many, many people. I know people also who went through this, this pandemic. Okay, I know people who were in the hospital. I know people who were on ventilators. I know people on ventilators they were for 3 months and 4 months and 5 months. And the doctor said, it's over. The doctor said it's over. And you know what? They came out of it. So yes, we always seek advice of professionals. So what does this mean? It says don't believe in them. It means as follows, and this is so important. A doctor, the Gemara, by the way, says this. This is not Rabbi O. This is the Talmud says this. Doctors have a right and the power to heal. They have no right to play God and say, it's over. They have no right to pull a plug. They have no right to say, it's another week, another 2 weeks. The perfect, and no one can argue with me on this, because the perfect proof to this is, I won't bring other people. Myself, 3.5 years old, my father's told, wait to make the funeral arrangements 1 hour more for your father-in-law. You can make then you'll be able to also make the funeral arrangements for your son. He is brain dead. Okay? That's it. He played God. Says the Gemara, doctors have no right to do that. Why? Because no matter how great the doctor is, and again, you'll excuse me, no offense, doctors and nurses and secretaries, but the bottom line is we see many, many cases. The doctor said that's it, and doctors don't understand God runs the world. No matter what the situation is. And the proof to that is not only myself, the proof to that is our whole nation. We should not be alive right now. We should not be existing right now. We should be off the map. And yet, not only we're not off the map, we're striving. We're striving so much. Why do you think there's so much anti-Semitism? Because no one understands how we're doing this. Yes, we're in the government. Yes, we made it to be big doctors, big lawyers. We hit technology. We hit every area there is in the world. And yet, we have everyone against us. Why? As it says, Tov lachseis b'Hashem, mibtayach ba'adam. I told you once, someone came to the Lubavitcher Rebbe complaining. Showed him the number on his arm. The number on his arm he showed him. And he says, Rebbe, after this, do you still believe in God? Do you still believe in God? And the Rebbe cried a little bit, and he turned around and said, Who do you want me to believe in? Man? Look what man is capable of doing. We have to remember one thing. God runs the world. And he has his reasons. He has his reasons. How many people are there? They go through cancer once. They survived. 7 years later, they get it back. Doesn't help. God has his reasons. Why this time yeah, why this time not? We have to know one thing. Yeah, seek advice. Yeah, listen. The bottom line is God runs the world. So then why does it have to repeat itself? The first verse says, Toiv lachseis b'Hashem im toiv ba'adam. It's better to trust God's shelter than the security of people. And then it says, Toiv lachseis b'Hashem, same thing. It's better to trust in God's shelter than trust leaders, Nedivim, noble people. What's the difference? Because we may think as follows. Yeah, if a regular person comes and promises me the world, right? Okay. But what happens if a leader comes? We won't mention any names. There are many leaders in the world. So it could mean any leader. And he says, and he promises us the world. And if you do this and this and this, it's going to be great. I promise. And not only do I promise, all you have to do is whatever you're doing according to your Torah, save it for a different time. But I promise you, you'll get back to it. And you'll be able to live a life, a religious life. Just now, in order for me to be able to do this and this and this for you, a little bit. Says David HaMelech, Zaynit kanar, don't be a fool. Leaders, politicians, everyone's worried about their own whatchamacallit. You think about what I mean by that. Toiv lachasais b'Hashem. The bottom line is the Eibishter runs the world. We think sometimes we're going to work hard and harder and harder. So we'll give up this learning in this class and the other class and davening with a minion. And we'll give it up. We got to work hard, parnasa. But we're forgetting that God already decides on what we're going to make parnasa-wise on Rosh Hashanah. True, we have to work. True, don't sit back. Don't rely on miracles. God won't help you then. God only helps those who help themselves. I'll tell you an unbelievable story. Happened really not too long ago. There was a guy who came to a class every single morning. He learned Daf Yomi. Daf Yomi means a blot, a page of Talmud. We do a page of Talmud. We try to do it a week. This is a page of Talmud a day. And he woke up every morning and went to his Daf Yomi class, his page of Talmud, every day religiously. And all of a sudden, he came to his work and things were just piling up. The letters. This was before, long time ago. There used to be something called faxes, right? A long time ago. This was already, he's getting emails and they're piling up his emails and he's got to answer his emails. Email after email after email. He comes to work. His secretary tells him this email, that email. What did he do? He went to his rabbi and said, Rabbi, I'm going to have to take a break from Daf Yomi class and a break from Minyan a little bit. Why? Because things are just piling up. The emails that I have to answer every day are just piling up. I just don't have enough time. True story. All of a sudden, 1 week goes by, 2 weeks go by. He comes back to his rabbi. He says, I don't understand what's going on. He says, I'm getting less emails now. I have more time on my hands. What's going on? And the rabbi turns around to him and says, don't you understand? God runs the world. You think Daf Yomi and davening is what's keeping you back from answering your emails. You think just because of that, that's it. You don't have the time. So God shows you, now you have all the time, you get no emails. He went back to learning Daf Yomi. He went back to his normal schedule, and things became normal again. God runs the world. God is with us. We don't see him. But if you really believe in God, and you really make him part of your life, it's as if you'll feel that God's holding your hand. And I'm going to conclude with a small little story. They say over as follows. You ready for this? Seatbelts. A little boy is sitting on the beach. And he's sitting there. And all alone. A man walking by says, are you lost? What's going on? You're by yourself. He says, no. Very soon, a big ship is going to go by, and I'm going to wave to the ship. And the ship's going to wave back to me. The captain of the ship is going to wave back to me. He says, what do you mean? What do you mean? What do you mean? He said, yeah, I have my binoculars. I'm going to wave to the ship, and the captain of the ship is going to wave back to me. Get out of here. No one's going to look at you. What do you think? You think a captain of the ship is going to wave? I'm telling you. So the man sits down with the kid, has his own set of binoculars too. And all of a sudden a cruise ship is floating by. And the kid puts his binoculars on. And the man has his binoculars on. And all of a sudden the kid at one point waves. And they both see the captain is waving back. He's waving back. Oh my gosh! So the man turns to the little boy and says, young man, what's going on? How did you know that was going to happen? And he says, you don't understand. The captain is my father. I knew he's going to wave back to me. Even if he's so far, I knew that he's going to wave back. My dear friends, the Eibishter sometimes is so hidden. But he's holding us. He's carrying us. He's with us. This week is Rosh Chodesh Elul, the last month of the Jewish year, the year before Rosh Hashanah, the year we have to prepare ourselves, to look inside of ourselves. God, believe it or not, it's this time of the year, the month of Elul is, God is campaigning, he's in the field. And if we stretch out our hand to God, God will stretch out his hand back to us. Now before Rosh Hashanah, God goes back to the palace. He becomes king again. He's on his throne. You want to get to God on Rosh Hashanah, it's a little harder. But if you get to know God a little better on Elul, this coming month, the last Hebrew month, and we do that introspection, look into ourselves. How can we become a better Jew? And a better Jew means to live godliness more, to live according to the Torah more, because the Torah is the wisdom of God. And if we decide on living it a little more, so number one, we're reaching out to God right away in Elul. Then when Rosh Hashanah comes and we knock on the palace door and say, excuse me, he'll say, oh, it's you. He'll recognize us right away and let us into the palace. Now it's time to focus on the one who runs the entire world, who's the doctor of all doctors and the president of all presidents and the leader of all leaders and the king of all kings. That's how we get close and make him relevant to our lives. Now it's time to focus the next 5 weeks. Focus on godliness. Focus on Torah. Focus on Yiddishkeit. So we had a rough year. How are we coming to Rosh Hashanah? Are we coming to Rosh Hashanah saying, okay, God, you gave me a rough year. I need a better year. So, remember me for life. Are we coming and saying, God, I messed up a little bit this year. I'm trying my hardest. I tried in Elul the month before, the 4 weeks before Rosh Hashanah. Now I have leverage what to ask for. I can't just come to the king and say, Ich bin da, Gomer pile. Surprise, surprise, surprise. I'm here. Give me what I want. Money, health, a good year. So then God's going to say, where were you a whole year? Where were you this last month? Where were you this last week? But if we work on ourselves a little bit and stretch our hand out a little bit and say, I'm willing, I want to change, I want to become better, no matter who we are, God, will give us a healthy year, a peaceful year, a great, awesome, and a sweet year. We're not going to have the sweet year just because we're going to eat apples and honey. We're not going to have the sweet year just because we're going to take the challah and dip it in honey. We got to do something for it. That's just a symbol. We got to do something. And each one of us on our own individual basis, like I started off the class today with Peter, God is our personal relative. Okay? And I'll conclude. We have different types of relationships with God. One relationship is a father and a son. Right? Another relationship is a king, a master, and his servant. But there's even a closer relationship than a father and a son in many ways. That is two spouses. The love there is between two spouses, you don't have that love with a parent. You don't have that love with a king. You don't have that love with anyone else. It's your spouse. The love is so great. And that's where, I know a lot of people, a lot of women have the necklaces and the rings. You get them in Israel. It says, Ani ledodi, v'dodi li. I am to my beloved, and my beloved is to me. Right? What does that mean? If we look at, that comes from the book of Song of Songs. If we take the letters, Ani, Lidodi, Vidodi Li, the first letters of all 4 words, is Aleph, Lamed, Ani, Lidodi, Vidodi, Li, Vav, Lamed. It spells the month of Elul. The abbreviations of each one of those words, which means in Elul, we can have the closest relationship possible to God. More than a whole year. Let's take advantage of it, my friends.